The sun rises over the rolling pastures of my land, casting long golden rays over the dewdrop-covered grass. I take a deep breath, inhaling the scent of fresh earth and morning air. This land has been in my family for generations. 200 acres of peace, history, and hard work. I wake up early every day, tending to the livestock, checking the fence line, and making sure everything runs smoothly. It's not just property, it's legacy. But ever since the new HOA president moved in down the road, something has felt off. Her name is Cynthia Montgomery, though the neighborhood already whispers another name, Karen-in-Chief. She waltzed into our quiet rural community like she owned it, pushing rules, holding meetings, and making life difficult for anyone who didn't fit her vision of proper homeowners. I wasn't a part of her HOA. I owned my land outright, far beyond the cookie-cutter neighborhood she ruled. But that didn't stop her from trying to control me. First, it was small things. A notice left in my mailbox about my unkempt property. A complaint to the county about my livestock being too close to her neighborhood. Sideways glances at the general store when I walked in. Her eyes sweeping over my boots, my calloused hands, and most of all, the color of my skin. I ignored her. I had no time for petty drama. But then the tire tracks started appearing. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Someone had taken a shortcut through my fields, their ATV tires leaving deep grooves in the damp earth. But as the days passed, the tracks multiplied, cutting through my property like scars. I patched up the damage, thinking it was kids or some careless neighbor. Then, one morning, I caught sight of the culprit. A sleek, red ATV tore through my field, kicking up dirt and ripping through my crops like they meant nothing. And there, gripping the handlebars, was Cynthia Montgomery herself. Wind whipping her blonde bob, sunglasses perched on her nose. She looked every bit like she belonged at some country club, not tearing through someone else's land like she owned it. I stepped forward, waving my arms. "Hey, you're on private property." She didn't even slow down. If anything, she gunned the engine, the roar drowning out my voice as she sped past me. A smug smirk flashing across her face before she disappeared over the ridge. I clenched my fists. This wasn't just an accident. This was a message. She was testing me, seeing if I'd back down, if I'd let her take what wasn't hers. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. She didn't know it yet, but she had just made the worst mistake of her life. The next morning, I find more tire tracks, fresh ones, deeper this time. They carve through the soft earth, crushing my crops, ripping through the pasture where my cattle graze. I run my fingers over the grooves, my jaw tightening. This isn't a one-time thing. Cynthia is doing this deliberately. I glance toward the ridge where she disappeared yesterday. My land stretches far beyond her HOA's manicured lawns. Yet somehow, she acts like she has a right to it. Maybe she thinks she's untouchable, that her little suburban fiefdom extends beyond its borders. Still, I don't want to believe she'd be that reckless. Maybe there's another explanation. So, I install a trail camera near the edge of my property, just past the old oak tree where her neighborhood starts. If she comes through again, I'll have proof. That evening, I head into town for supplies. At the general store, I spot Cynthia near the produce aisle, chatting with a group of HOA board members. She wears a crisp white blouse, perfectly ironed slacks, and that ever-present smug smile. Her voice carries across the store, sharp, clipped, full of passive-aggressive charm. Certain standards must be upheld. This isn't some backwoods free-for-all, she says, shaking her head. I pause by the shelves, pretending to read a label. I mean, really, she continues, her voice dropping just enough to sound conspiratorial. Some people don't understand what it means to live in a proper community. They bring in their lifestyle and suddenly property values start dropping. One of her lackeys, a wiry man in golf attire, nods vigorously. Exactly. We need to keep things in order. We can't have people just doing whatever they want. Cynthia sighs. That's why I've taken matters into my own hands. Some people need a little push in the right direction. She laughs lightly, and the others join in. I grip the can in my hand so tightly my knuckles turn white. I know exactly who she's talking about. I walk past them, making sure she sees me. Her laughter falters for just a second, her gaze flicking to mine. Then, she smiles wider, as if daring me to say something. I don't. Not yet. That night, I check my trail camera. The footage is grainy in the low light, but it's clear enough. The red ATV streaks across my land, the rider sitting tall, completely unbothered. Cynthia. I exhale slowly, my hands tightening into fists. This isn't an accident. This isn't a misunderstanding. She's not just trespassing. She's making a statement. She thinks she can do whatever she wants. She thinks I won't fight back. She's about to find out just how wrong she is. The next morning, I don't just watch from afar. I stand at the edge of my property, arms crossed, waiting. Right on schedule, the growl of Cynthia's ATV echoes over the hills. The red beast tears through my fields like she owns them, its thick tires digging into my land. This time, I step directly into her path. She slams the brakes, stopping just feet from me. A cloud of dust swirls around us. Cynthia pulls off her designer sunglasses, tilting her head as if I'm the one inconveniencing her. You're trespassing, I say, my voice steady but firm. She blinks, then lets out a light, condescending laugh. Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just a shortcut. A shortcut through my property. She sighs, tapping perfectly manicured nails against the handlebars. Listen, I've been using this path for weeks. No one's complained until now. I take a slow step forward. I'm complaining now. Stay off my land. Her smile falters for half a second, but then she straightens, her expression turning icy. Do you even know who I am? I'm the president of the HOA. This entire neighborhood follows my rules. I narrow my eyes. I don't live in your HOA. Well, she huffs, shifting on her seat. Maybe you should. This area would look much better if it were properly maintained. Her gaze drifts to my barn, my crops, my home, as if she's appraising it, judging whether it fits into her pristine little world. Clench my jaw. This land has been in my family for generations. Cynthia rolls her eyes. And yet, somehow, it still looks so unmanaged. I breathe deeply, willing myself to stay calm. This is the last time I'm asking nicely. Stay off my property. Her lips curl into a smirk. Or what? I step aside and point to the old oak tree near the property line. See that? That's a trail cam. I have footage of you trespassing. If you don't stop, I'll take it to the sheriff. Her smirk vanishes. For a split second, something flashes in her eyes. Something calculating. Something mean. Then, just as quickly, she composes herself, pasting on that artificial smile. You do whatever you think you need to, she says sweetly, before revving her engine and speeding off. I watch her disappear over the hill, dust kicking up in her wake. I don't trust her to stop. Not yet. So I take it a step further. I drive into town and visit my friend Marcus, who runs the local hardware store. He raises an eyebrow when I ask about motion-activated floodlights and additional cameras. Having trouble? You could say that. I tell him everything. By the time I'm done, Marcus shakes his head. Yeah, I've heard about her. Thinks she can run everything like a damn country club. I'll get you set up with what you need. By that evening, I've installed new cameras. Ones she won't see, hidden in the trees, positioned to capture every angle. And just in time. Because that night, she escalates. I wake to the roar of an ATV and the sound of something crashing. I throw on my boots and rush outside. My fence, one I built with my own hands, is destroyed. The wooden posts are splintered, wires torn down. My cattle, spooked, have scattered into the fields. And there, at the edge of the destruction, sits Cynthia, her ATV idling, her smirk wider than ever. You have no proof, she calls out over the engine's growl. But this time I do. The cameras have caught Eve. Cynthia revs the engine of her ATV, sitting smugly amidst the wreckage of my fence, her arms crossed like she's daring me to do something about it. The moonlight glints off the shards of broken wood and twisted metal wire, the damage stretching across my property like an open wound. My cattle have scattered in the dark, their distressed calls echoing across the fields. I step forward, my fists clenched at my sides, but my voice remains calm. You've gone too far, Cynthia. She laughs. A sharp, condescending sound. Oh, please, it's just a fence. If you had any real sense, you'd be grateful I even bring traffic through here. You could learn a thing or two about keeping your property presentable. I exhale slowly, keeping my temper in check. You know damn well this isn't about looks. This is about you thinking you own everything you see. She smirks, tilting her head. I do own everything I see, sweetheart. You might have a few acres, but let's be honest. People like you don't really belong here. There it is. The truth beneath all her games. The reason she's been trying to push me out, trying to make me feel small. I let the silence stretch between us. Let her think she's won. That I have no response. Her smirk grows, her arrogance ballooning. Honestly, she continues, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. This land would be worth so much more if someone civilized owned it. Maybe it's time you considered selling. You'd be doing the whole community a favor. My lips curl into a slow smile. You mean your community? Because this land doesn't answer to your HOA. Does it? Her smile falters just slightly, but she quickly recovers. Technicalities, she waves dismissively. I have connections. I could have this place condemned in a week if I wanted to. I nod. Is that what you told the county when you filed complaints about my farm? Because I had a chat with them today. She stiffens just a fraction. I step closer, my voice steady, measured. And they told me something interesting. Every complaint, every zoning violation, they all came from one person. I tilt my head. Want to guess who? Her fingers tighten on the handlebars, but she forces another laugh. Oh, please, anyone could have reported you. You're clearly not keeping up with the standards. Of an HOA I don't even belong to? I cut in smoothly. Her mouth snaps shut. I pull out my phone and tap the screen. The footage from my trail cameras plays in crisp, clear quality. Cynthia, tearing through my land. Cynthia, knocking down my fence. Cynthia, laughing like she owns the world. Her face drains of color. Now, here's the fun part. I continue watching her squirm. Trespassing? That's a crime. Destruction of property. That's another one. And lucky for me, the sheriff is a good friend of mine. I step aside and gesture behind me. From the darkness, red and blue lights flash as a patrol car pulls onto my property. The sheriff steps out, his expression unreadable as he takes in the damage. Got the footage? He asks me. I nod, handing him my phone. Cynthia scrambles off her ATV, her smugness dissolving into panic. Wait, this is ridiculous. This is just a misunderstanding. You can't be serious. The sheriff raises an eyebrow. Looks pretty serious to me, ma'am, especially considering the multiple reports of harassment against this property owner. He glances at me. Want to press charges? I cross my arms, watching Cynthia sputter. She's cornered, and she knows it. I let the tension stretch a little longer before I answer. Oh, absolutely. Cynthia's confident facade cracks as the sheriff reviews the footage on my phone. The bright screen illuminates her face, and for the first time, I see real fear in her eyes. This is absurd, she snaps, trying to regain control. This man has been harassing me. He's the problem here. He's aggressive, he's dangerous, and he has no respect for community rules. The sheriff doesn't even look up. You're the one trespassing, ma'am. She lets out a forced laugh. Oh, come on. Who even cares about a couple of tire tracks? This land is barely maintained. I cut her off, stepping closer. You mean the land my family has owned for generations? The land you've been illegally driving on, destroying? All because you think you're above the law. Her mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air. Her usual condescension is gone, replaced with sheer panic. You don't understand, she says, her voice cracking. I was just helping this place look presentable. People like him. She stops herself, realizing too late what she almost said. But the sheriff has already caught it. His expression darkens. People like him, huh? Cynthia's face flushes red. That's not what I meant. Really? He folds his arms. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been targeting this man, harassing him, damaging his property, because you don't think he belongs here. Cynthia looks around frantically, as if searching for an ally. But there's no one left to back her up. Even her usual arrogance can't save her now. Then, another set of headlights sweeps across the dirt road. A black SUV pulls up, and out steps a woman in a sleek business suit. Her presence alone is commanding, and when she flashes her badge, Cynthia visibly pales. The sheriff straightens. "Ma'am, I wasn't expecting. I happened to be in town," the woman interrupts. "Got a call about an ongoing issue involving property damage and harassment." She turns to me. "You're the owner, correct?" I nod. "That's right." She offers a firm handshake. "Camila Reyes, county prosecutor." Cynthia stumbles back. "P. prosecutor." Reyes nods. "I took an interest in this case after seeing multiple complaints filed against you, Ms. Whitmore." She gives Cynthia a pointed look. "Funny thing, though, all those complaints came from you." Cynthia stammers. That's not a crime." "No, but trespassing is. So is vandalism. And based on this footage, we're also looking at reckless endangerment. You nearly ran this man over on multiple occasions." Cynthia whirls on me, her face contorted with rage. "You set me up." I smirk. "No, Cynthia. You did this to yourself." Her breathing is shallow, panicked. She turns to the sheriff. You can't arrest me. I'm HOA president. Do you know who my husband is?" The sheriff sighs. "Yes, ma'am. And I don't care. I donate to the community. I organize events. I make sure property values stay high." "You're also facing criminal charges." Reyes steps forward. "And I guarantee that once this footage gets out, your precious HOA won't be standing behind you." Cynthia whimpers, shaking her head in disbelief. "This isn't happening. This can't be happening." "But it is." The sheriff pulls out his cuffs. "Cynthia Whitmore, you're under arrest for trespassing, vandalism, and harassment. You have the right to remain silent." As he recites her rights, Cynthia loses it. No, this is a mistake," she screams, thrashing as the cuffs snap around her wrists. "I'm better than this. You can't do this to me." But her words are drowned out by the unmistakable click of my phone's camera. I turn the screen toward her, showing the recording in progress. Her arrest, her downfall, and soon, the entire world will see it. The next morning, Cynthia Whitmore's arrest is all over the local news. A crisp video, taken by me, shows her screaming as the sheriff cuffs her, her once pristine tennis whites smeared with dirt. The headline flashes across the screen. HOA president arrested for trespassing and harassment. Faces multiple charges. By noon, her world is in freefall. The HOA board scrambles to distance themselves, releasing a hollow statement about misaligned values. Neighbors, once silent, flood online forums with complaints. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she harassed. She'd been weaponizing the HOA for years, bullying families she deemed undesirable. Now everyone is coming forward. By evening, she's been removed as president. By the next week, her husband's real estate firm drops in value as clients back out, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. The same HOA that once protected her? Now they're threatening legal action against her, claiming her behavior has brought negative press and financial losses. Karma moves fast. I lean against my newly repaired fence, watching the sunset paint the sky in streaks of gold and violet. My land is quiet again, peaceful. The sheriff stops by, resting his hands on his belt. She's looking at some serious fines, maybe even jail time. I nod. Good. But I didn't do this for revenge. He smirks. Maybe not. But it's still satisfying, isn't it? I glance at my phone, at the endless stream of messages from neighbors thanking me for standing up to her, for proving that entitlement doesn't make someone untouchable. I exhale. Yeah, it is. At the next community meeting, the room is packed. Normally, HOA meetings are dry, filled with discussions about mailbox colors and lawn heights. But tonight, people want accountability. A woman raises her hand. How did we let this happen? Silence. Then an older man shifts uncomfortably. Because we let her, he admits. We turned a blind eye. We let her speak for us, enforce rules that didn't exist, push people out because we were too afraid to push back. Murmurs of agreement ripple through the room. For the first time, real change begins. The HOA charter is rewritten, limiting presidential powers. The board is forced to reflect, to acknowledge how they upheld a system that allowed someone like Cynthia to thrive. Some people still mutter about how it shouldn't have come to this. But I don't care, because it did, and she lost. A month later, Cynthia's house goes up for sale. She's moving. Rumor is, she and her husband are filing for divorce. She lost her power, her reputation, her carefully curated perfect life. And I'm still here, still standing. And my land, my home, remains mine.